Hey, what's up, party people? Welcome to another star-studded edition of Honest Trailer Commentaries, where we watched all the Best Picture nominees so you don't have to. And you definitely didn't this year. I'm here with Lon, I'm here with Danielle. We're going to give our mini reviews, our behind-the-scenes thoughts on every film we covered in this trailer. We'll show you some cut jokes. We'll answer questions and comments from viewers like yourselves, so keep them coming in the chat. And then we'll tease you with next week's Honest Trailer. Should be a fun one. Hello, welcome. Danielle and Lon, what do you think of the crop of Best Picture nominees this year overall?
It loses something because I have like a whole tradition where you get together and you watch them all and you do that thing. So I think it kind of loses something without the camaraderie of that and just kind of watching it from home. But Sound of Metal, I really genuinely thought was a really, really good movie. That might be my favorite out of all of the movies was Sound of Metal. I might because I watched it first. Um, that's always a possibility. But yeah, uh, it's interesting when you have sort of a lower um, amount of movies that we were even getting. Tenet not really being around here, maybe kind of surprised me, but maybe not. I don't know.
Mm. Oh, Tenet truther. Lon, what do you think? Is this representative of the year's best movies or nah?
Uh, it's. I mean, I think it's like a pretty good year. Like, I think most of the movies on this list, I think, are at least above average to quite good. And then it does have some of my favorite. Like, I would say Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, and Nomadland, and Sound of Metal. Like those four, I think it's hard to make the case that those four aren't legitimately among the best movies of last year, or at least like American movies that were released, like eligible in sort of that parameter. So yeah, and only one or two sort of stand out to me as like I might not have put that up for Best Picture. No glaring, like I don't feel like there's a Green Book this year that feels like what is that doing there? Maybe Trial of the Chicago 7.
I was gonna say like, that's my Green Book this year.
Like that's on the bubble, but I think I think that's still I think that's more defensible. I agree that's the bubble case this year, but I also thought, and I know, listen, I get that I'm a 40-year-old white man, so feel free to disregard this take, but I didn't love Promising Young Woman. I liked it. Promising Young Woman felt to me like the kind of movie that would come and go, and then in like 3 or 4 years, somebody would be like, "Hey, did you ever see that weird Promising Young Woman? It's actually pretty good." And you'd watch it, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, this kind of flew under the radar." It doesn't feel like a Best Picture kind of thing to me. Like,
I mean, we'll cover that when we get to that section. I think to me, the Chicago 7 is the only Green Book of the bunch. I would replace it with either Da 5 Bloods, Another Round, or First Cow. Those are the three things that were in my Best Picture list but didn't make the finals. And we will be doing our annual If We Were the Academy video, so stay tuned for that one. But let's talk about every a little teaser. We'll talk about every movie as we watch it. So let's hit it with the honest trailer for the Oscars 2021. One of my favorite traditions of the year. Because otherwise I wouldn't watch half these things.
Yeah, it's some of them. It's like you gotta like work up to it.
For the Oscars, the annual award show for the year's best movies. In a year where no one could go to the movies. But since nothing can stop Hollywood's biggest stars from giving awards to each other, here are your honest nominees for this year's Best Picture. Prepare for a film about injustice, political activism, and social movements that couldn't have come at a more timely moment. Oscar season.
It's the Academy Awards of protest, and as far as I'm concerned, it's an honor just to be nominated.
In Aaron Sorkin's first film to give the finger to historical truth since, well, his last 4 movies, featuring Borat's wackiest accent yet.
Over the course of 10 days, the government called 37 witnesses.
Eddie Redmayne's 3rd or 4th wackiest accent yet.
Whether we're given permits or not, we're coming.
And the guy from Succession doing an impression of Cheech and Chong at the same time.
It's a Tom Collins. I know it's kind of a country club drink, but they're delicious.
So get inspired for more of the fast-paced Sorkin-y speechifying that could maybe almost change someone's mind about something if they were already open to the ideas in the first place and you caught them on a good day. Chicken soup for the liberal soul.
All right, pause. Now, look, I don't know. I'm not a historian, nor did I live through these events. And it turned out that there are a lot of things that were kind of surprising, like, oh, the judge really was that biased and that angry, and the cops did riot that day. But in watching it, I'm like, this is bullshit. None of this happened the way that he's presenting it. And then in looking through the documents or the articles written about, like, this is how it went down, like, it's not how it happened. He turned this actual thing into like a play, into a West Wing episode, and it was just so obnoxious, and I preemptively hate it so much because it's going to win Best Picture. Thoughts?
The one thing that he totally fictionalized, that he made up for the movie, there's a moment where they're walking, and a bunch of the guys who are on trial are walking into the courtroom, and somebody whips an egg at Jerry Rubin, who Jeremy Strong is playing, and he catches it. And he's like, hey, man, I couldn't. And that's such a dumb, weird thing. You're like, well, that must have happened. There's no way you would just make that up. That must be a thing that just weird happened that you were like, I got to put that in the movie.
No, I'm sorry, Lott. He made up a whole bunch of stuff. He made up the Fed who Jerry Rubin
right. Oh, I'm not
falls in love with.
No, I'm not saying that's the only thing he made up. I'm saying every other thing he made up, like, I get from a storytelling perspective why you'd make that thing up. Like, it's easier.
Danielle's out. Danielle's just, she couldn't hear anymore. She's
like, it's easier for him to do what's up. Why would you make up the egg thing? It's so weird, and I don't even think it's possible. Like, if I threw an egg at you and you reached up to catch it, would just explode in your hand, wouldn't it?
Sure. I mean, it was an impressive feat of egg catching if that was indeed a real egg.
Well, it doesn't even look real in the movie. The moment I saw it, I was like, well, that must be real, because you'd never write something bizarre like that if it didn't happen. Sure, you would if you were Aaron Sorkin. Maybe.
But just making the hero of this story, Tom Hayden, like the most a fictionalized, super moderate version of Tom Hayden, and the federal prosecutor with a heart of gold. It just tells you exactly where Sorkin's sensibilities lie, which is the West Wing, which is like, if we all just move towards the center, we're all just, that's where everything good happens. Like,
yeah. Look, I think the problem is, and it's my problem with a bunch of, like, I like some Sorkin, but I think that he's so enamored of the speechifying and the politics and, like, here's my take on this historical moment, that he just, like, he forgets to make it a compelling narrative about these guys, and it just becomes, like you said, like a play where we're here to, like, listen to all of these great, well-written speeches and, like, hear all of these ideas, but then at the end it doesn't really add up to much. I think it also has it's really unfortunate that it was for Trial in Chicago 7 that it was released in the same year as Mangrove, the leadoff film of Small Axe, the Steve McQueen collection that's on Amazon. The first film in that collection is called Mangrove, and it's also based on a true story. It's also about a bunch of guys who led a protest that then turned into a clash with police, who were also arrested for inciting a riot. And it's in London, and it's the West Indian community there instead of hippies in Chicago. But it's a much more compelling and personal take. And also Judas and the Black Messiah, also a more personal take on the same the individual stakes of these kinds of things, instead of just as a historical sort of panorama. And I think both of those were more effective.
Yeah, it just felt like a massive circle jerk. And maybe it won't win because I did ask my dad, who was, like, living through these events, like, what do you think of this? And he's like, this does not pass the smell test. This is not how it happened or what it felt like to be around there. So there you go. So maybe
I feel like Nomadland has a lot of the momentum that if I was going to place money on it, I think that's our winner.
Yeah, could be. Well, I don't know what happened to Danielle, but we've got so many movies left. I'm sure, I hope she's well, and she'll be back for the next one. Let's keep going.
I hope I didn't drive her away.
Experience the moving story of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton, Snitch, in an intimate portrayal of the relationship between this backstabbing bullshitter and Jesse Plemons' latest white boy you don't want to mess with, leaving audiences with about as much knowledge of the Black Panther movement as Forrest Gump.
Sorry I had a fight in the middle of your Black Panther party.
That still definitely deserves a Best Picture nomination, but it's gotta sting that Defy Bloods got snubbed while Spike Lee's literal film student got in. You do know you can honor more than one black director at a time, right? At least nominate Delroy Lindo, you cowards.
Yeah, pause. I mean, I didn't have much to say about Judas and the Black Messiah. It's really good. I wish there was more on Fred Hampton and centering it so much through the lens of this undercover cop. I don't know. For somebody who, again, doesn't know anything about real history, I wanted to know more, and I didn't really care about Lakeith's character as much. But it was like a good window into the power dynamics of the feds and the party at the time. But I like it more as a springboard to talk about The Five Bloods, which I really enjoyed, and I guess just came out too early for them to remember it or recognize it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love The Five Bloods. Five Bloods definitely, I think, should have been up for Best Picture as well. Yeah, I think it came out early, and that was part of it. And I think it was also, like so many Spike Lee things, it's so ambitious. It's taking on so much, and I think it's just like overwhelming for some people. Like that experience, I really enjoy those kinds of movies, but I know that it can be frustrating for some viewers if you're really enjoying it on the level of this war movie adventure, then you're bummed out that he's interrupting it for like documentary style segments where you look at the history of what's going on and fill in the context. If you're enjoying that stuff, then you're like, oh, but I don't care about these guys and the camaraderie. And, like there's so many different elements going on that I think is sort of bringing together in this really interesting, stew.
Yeah. I mean, I like the stew. I like the collage, the hodgepodge, like the throwing everything at the wall. I felt the same way about Chirac a few years ago. I thought that was one of the best films of the year that totally got overlooked. Yeah,
it reminds me in some ways of what Oliver Stone was doing in the 90s with stuff like JFK and Nixon, where that also kind of rubbed some audiences the wrong way. But I think it's like exciting, and you kind of never know where you're going to jump around to next.
But I mean, there's no other way to say it. At least nominate Delroy Lindo, you cowards, because he, say what you will about the style of filmmaking and the movie and the plot or subject matter or anything, but man, that was an amazing performance, start to finish.
No, I mean, I bought the Super Yaki shirt. I feel very strongly that Delroy, but I mean, he's one of those guys that doesn't get the big nominations, isn't top of mind when people are rattling off the best actors of his generation, and yet clearly is one of the best actors of his generation. You could go back to Get Shorty and Clockers and so many really memorable, iconic performances from that guy. And it really felt like not only is this an all-timer in The Five Bloods, but it's just time. It's just
it's time.
Solid.
And just I recommend everybody watch the film if you haven't, just for him alone.
But Judas and the Black Messiah, also a great film, and I thought does a very powerful job of making these larger than life characters real. You could read the books and see the films about Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, and here's what they stood for, and the berets and the guns. But then you see this, and you're like, it's about the man and how he was only 21, and his world and the relationship between those guys. And I found that really compelling.
Yeah. But alas, we are ostensibly a comedy program, and I just didn't have too much to say about it. So let's.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to mock. These are serious topics, folks.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
From the colossal castles atop Cahuenga to the bustling boulevards of Boys Town, all of Hollywood is in the tank for Mank. That compelling Kane chronicle from Fight Club frontman Fincher has everyone talking, from film historians to film festival programmers. Heck, even film preservationists want hanky-panky from Mr. Mankey. Don't have intimate knowledge of old Hollywood history? Well, hit the books, Junior. Any manjack who doesn't know their shearers from their selznicks is gonna get all flipped around before you can say Irving J. Thalberg. Oh, brother. Gary Oldman is the cat's pajamas as the man who put the Mank in Herman J. Mankiewicz, a fella who was half the actor's age when this all took place. Stop by the trailer for another layer of powder, Mr. Oldman. You'll get there. Plus, there's the lovely Lily Collins as Mank's secretary, who takes notes on all of his opinions. And the amazing Amanda Seyfried as Mank's friend, who listens patiently to all his opinions. And the transcendent Tuppence Middleton as Mank's wife, who sits quietly while he has his opinions. Great job, dames. Maybe you'll get some opinions of your own one day. After all, it's Tinseltown, where dreams come true. So grab your most patient grandparent for a retro revisionist roller coaster ride of righteousness, relevance, and rebuke that may look like a classic film, but unfolds with all the aimless filler of a modern-day 13-episode Netflix show. Take that, Mr. Punisher. You've just been manked what good. Prank Mankers.
Oh, that was now almost unedited, a Lon Harris diatribe. Channeling Scoops McGee, I believe, on that one. A powerhouse vocal performance from John. I love how that one all came together. And the quick update, of course, Danielle's internet has gone down and she is on the phone with Spectrum. So
those Spectrum bastards.
Those full Spectrum bastards.
Oh my God.
So hopefully that will get resolved, but don't hold your breath.
No.
Anyways, Mank. I love Mank, but I think at sort of an ironic distance, just because it is so impenetrable to anybody who doesn't care about 1930s Hollywood.
Yeah, it's so weird because on one level, like obviously Dave Fincher, a bright boy, knows what he's doing, and his ability to make a modern film, but in this 30s style, it's really cool. Like he's got a lot of mastery of that era of filmmaking and how a 30s movie might look and the shots and the sets. And I really enjoyed it on that level. But unlike a 30s movie, this is just like, it's really aimless, and it really seems to like not know exactly what its take on Mank is and who Mank is. And so the journey just feels like really sloppy. And like, that's a thing that in a 30s movie would be like down. They had that down to like a science. It would be like a well-oiled machine. You'd know exactly what Mank's goal was the whole time. And yeah, it just felt like no effort to like endear Mank to us or make us see things make us.
And I don't need to love Mank. I don't need to like Mank, but I need to understand Mank.
Right,
and
exactly. I need to just want to know Mank better. Yeah. That's it. And I don't feel like he's a character that's compelling. It feels like a loud drunk with a lot of opinions.
He's a drunk who wanders around, nice looking grounds and pontificates. It's like it's like David Fincher made Avatar, but about 1930s Hollywood. He's really like the Sam Worthington, just this guy who takes you through this other world, and like, oh, look over there, it's William Randolph Hearst, and oh, over there, it's David O. Selznick. Like, and I mean, you cared. If you don't, you don't.
Right, and it's like it's sort of fun on that level, but then you're like, there's a scene towards the end where Amanda Seyfried, who they're all the actors are good. It's not a knock on any of them, but Amanda Seyfried comes to see Mank. She's marrying David, and they're old friends, and she's trying to talk him out of making this project that he's currently working on, not only for selfish reasons, but because she knows it'll ruin him. And you're like halfway through the scene, you're just like, I should care. Like this is emotional. These are two old friends. She's like reaching out to him like on a personal level, and I just don't. It's just sitting there on screen. And I mean,
you brought up a good point in this section. It's like by doubling his age, the specter of ending his career doesn't hit home as hard, because like this is like a 60, 70-year-old man. And he should retire.
And when he was writing the script, Mank was like 32, I think. 33, or like beginning of his career, like up and coming, as opposed to on the tail end. And that's not a rummy. That's not a thing Gary Oldman can just like fit. Like, he's brilliant. Well, nobody's knocking Gary Oldman, but like, I don't know if he can act his way out of that scenario. It just seems unfair to him.
Yeah. So a flawed but fun one. I think like I go, oh wow, I didn't know Upton Sinclair ran for governor. Like, it was full of moments of like, oh wow, that's interesting. It's kind of a tour through a period of history that I didn't know much about. So I appreciate it on that level. And yes, David Fincher knows how to frame a scene. There's lots of beautiful imagery. See it on the biggest screen you can, which is going to be your television. And yeah, full of good performances. But I do think it's kind of like too impenetrable to A, cross over, to B, win Best Picture this year. But we'll see. It's got a good story behind it of like, oh, his dad wrote it, and he's like kind of honoring that.
The Oscars, they like, people who make movies love movies about movies, like they love honoring the cinema. And so like
the artist,
it is a movie about the power of movies. And so that's always a thing that Oscar voters love. Yeah.
All right, what's next? It's also fun to say Mank.
Meet Ruben, a hardcore rocker who loses his hearing, which is a nightmare scenario for a musician, and I guess pretty bad for drummers too. Watch him go through the 5 stages of grief with an extended stop in anger.
I'm dead! I'm dead!
Yeah, take that, donut. You've had it too good for too long. In this shoe-in to win all of the Sound Awards, and continues the Whiplash tradition of angry drummer movies that deserve Best Picture but won't win. And hey, at least Riz Ahmed is the first Muslim to ever get a Best Actor nomination. So, we're still hitting these firsts after almost 100 years at the Oscars, huh? Good for us, yay. Def Jam.
So yes, there's been a flood of actually people mentioning Mahershala Ali's win for Best Supporting Actor. We say Best Actor, and that's what we meant. Specifically the Best Actor category.
Very specifically.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, this was my favorite movie of the bunch. Maybe my favorite of the year. I don't know. I think that it's it worked on two kind of parallel levels for me. One was this kind of exploration of the deaf community and just the something I knew nothing about, and was kind of this beautiful introduction to a way of living and being okay with this affliction or however they frame it. It was kind of a beautiful story of acceptance and how these people live and thrive and adapt to life circumstances. And then the other level was like, I feel like, not to take away from that, but the parallel to our own lives is like, this is somebody who's had to deal with a change in their circumstances that they did not wish, and is very disruptive. And I think we can all relate to that this last year. And it's about, you can rage against it, or you can kind of come to terms with it. And I thought that it was kind of a beautiful story of self-acceptance and just acceptance of the world at large, and spoke to me on that level. And the music and sound design was really, really cool, and it's got a great performance. So that's my case for best film of the year for I keep wanting to call it Def Jam for sound effect.
It's a difficult needle to thread with a story like this, because it's got to feel authentic and specific to what it's about. It's about a real thing. Like, people go deaf, and there's this deaf community, and this really happens to people every year. And so it has to feel like it's telling that story, and it's not purely universal. And like, I thought, Riz Ahmed and Paul Raci, who I assumed when I was watching this, Paul Raci, who plays the guy who's like the mentor at the deaf community where he goes to live. I assumed that was a real guy, like a Nomadland. They found a real guy who runs like a commune for deaf people, and they got him to be in the movie. He's a character actor. I've seen him in other stuff. He's been in a bunch of TV shows. That's incredible. The authenticity of that performance, and they did surround him with other deaf actors who are playing the other people living in that community. So it passes the smell test, and you do feel like you're getting insight into what it's specifically like to lose your hearing later in life. But it also has to work on the level of the universal, which is just like what you were saying. Like, it does relate to being quarantined for a year. I felt like not having deafness, but other health or medical or mental health issues, I think you could certainly relate to that feeling of like, these things are interrupting you in the prime of your life, in the flow of your life, and you don't have time to like accommodate all of these and compartmentalize all these different things. So yeah, this movie makes it look easy to do, but it's really hard to do that, to tell a story that's working simultaneously on both of those levels. And it pulls it off incredibly. It's very, very powerful, especially I don't want to say what happens, but the final sequence is really
so good. Same with Whiplash, although they really, the only DNA they share is Angry Drummer at the center of it all.
I like Whip. I think this is a better, certainly a movie with a healthier perspective than Whiplash.
Whiplash. But I thought, well, I put it maybe 1B next to Birdman. I do think Birdman deserved its best picture that year.
I'm gonna get yelled at, but I really like Birdman. I was a big Birdman fan.
Well, 1A, 1B. I think we're aligned. But I assumed when I watched this that it was a true story or based on the writer-director's hearing loss or something. But no, this was just kind of pulled out of the ether. And I thought that was so incredible. And yes, Paul Raci's character, on one sense, you assume he's based on a real person. But on the other sense, isn't there always someone in rehab who's like a ponytailed white guy with some tattoos who's seen some shit?
But like, it met up with my expectations in that way, that it felt like they were pulling something off. And then when I looked that guy up, and I was like, it wasn't only that he's just an actor, he's just doing a performance, but it was like, I've seen him in stuff. He's been in a bunch of stuff that I've seen, and it was just, he made me believe it in the moment.
Well, you know what? I love this movie, but it did ruin those turning on your cochlear implant for the first time YouTube videos for that. Those hit different now. So anyways, if you haven't seen it,
now you're suspicious. You're like, is this really delightful? Are you really full of joy?
So I think if you haven't seen this yet, if you're only going to watch one Oscar movie this year, I would just hop on Amazon Prime and stream this one. It's free from the same place you get your toilet paper. Okay, let's go on to the next film.
Let Chloe Zhao's masterful direction sweep across the pristine beauty of America most of the time. for a documentary full of real people, plus a famous actor so that you'd actually watch it. In this film that could be viewed as an indictment of modern capitalism or an endorsement for how sweet van life can be. I mean, just look at that puppy. Solid as a rock. Got an indoor stove for hot chow, ample storage.
More counter space.
And no landlord breathing down your neck? SNL lied to us. Living in a van down by the river is awesome. Bucket pissed.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about Nomadland. It's also the one I watched the longest ago, so it's been a while. But I guess maybe the interesting, not debate, but balance that they have to strike is similar to one of my favorites from a few years ago, Florida Project, where it's like, are they exploiting? Is this poverty porn? Are they exploiting poverty and making it, romanticizing it? But at the same time, I feel like with the real people that they involved in this movie, it's like, there are people who just have not dropped out, but have chosen to go their own way through this life in like a less materialistic way. And it's not romantic. You do have to poop in a bucket, but it also does afford you certain freedoms that the rest of us don't have.
Yeah, I think if this was a documentary, if this was like, let's make a film about what it's like to live in a van across America, I think I would probably have some more issues with it, like in terms of how Amazon is depicted. I also noticed there's one moment where she's sleeping, Fern is sleeping in her van, and a person just knocks on the window, and she gets like spooked for a moment, and it turns out they're friendly. They're like, oh, you can come inside and use the bathroom. There's never any other scene where we deal directly with the idea that this is not safe, especially for a woman alone. Like, there's never a personal safety thing. And if this were a documentary, you'd be like, wait a minute, like you're making it look like this is totally like nobody's ever going to bother you. And like, you want to have a gun or something, you know, like they would never even engage with that. But because it's this woman's story and it's about her life and what this move means to her, I didn't get too caught up in that. I think it's an emotional story and a narrative about Fern and the people she meets on the road and what this life means to her versus the alternative. I think that's where the heart of the movie is, and it's really well done in terms of that, and Frances McDormand sort of taking you on that sort of journey, and never seeming like it never feels like it's in a, well, we got to wrap this up, or it's in a cheesy way, or like let's let her. We need a chase at the. We need a car chase at the end. There's no attempt to like artificially resolve, and you almost feel like they give you a sort of an out, like, well, maybe this will be what happens. And then it's not, and they sort of resist that urge and let the character like kind of go off into the horizon. And there's a little bit of an air of mystery, and I thought that was really well done. And amazing performance by Frances and Chloe Zhao. She can frame herself a sweeping landscape, man. And she's really good. She's made other films with sort of amateur actors, and this movie as well has a bunch of these people who really are like sort of modern nomads, telling their stories to camera or talking to Fern about themselves. And Chloe Zhao, amazing with working with these amateur actors and getting these performances out of them, because they are still, they're playing versions of themselves, but they're still performances. I was surprised the old woman that Fern befriends, and I'm forgetting her name right now, Cookie maybe or something, does not have cancer. They added that to her story for the movie. Really? Wow. Because that's acting. That was the highlight of the film to me, is like her just describing important moments in her life that weren't like the usual money, job, career, family things. It was like the and that saw the stuff birds. Is true. Right. Yeah. Her story about the birds is true. Like, she's talking about her own life, but she was just going up north to go see friends. She wasn't going to like say goodbye because she was dying of cancer. They added that in as dramatic license, which I think is fine. But like that's not an actress. That's a regular woman who's just pretending. And like that, I'm very impressed. Yeah, pretty phenomenal filmmaking all around. Might be a little slow for some people's tastes. I'm sure it helps to see it in a cinema where you can kind of take it all in widescreen. It's definitely the sort of thing you've got to sort of like meet. You've got to meet the movie halfway. It's not going to just come and be like, all right, 7 minutes, there's a bomb, we got to go. Like we got to kind of get into the rhythms of this particular story. Yeah, but. So curious to see how Eternals turns out, because I can't see this mapping onto a Marvel movie at all, but I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
It's this plus Buff Kumail. That's all you need, and then that's together.
I don't see how those two things fit together, but we'll see. Anyways, let's keep going.
From the writer-director, who I still haven't forgiven for being so mean to Lady Di, comes the tale of a vigilante who uses herself as man-bait for sexual predators so that she can give these creeps what they truly deserve. A stern talking to.
Careful next time you go out, Neil.
In this film, with parallels to another story about someone in makeup who hates society. Oh no, a lady Joker with a powerful message for girls. Do not trust men. If they were an adorable comedic actor who peaked around 2010.
I want to see you. The real you.
At 2, McLovin? Don't kill Bill for some reason.
All right, pause. Well, I think, look, with the disclaimer and caveats that I don't think Lon and I can really even comment on this one.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares
what we have to say.
That's fine.
This is obviously a film about how women aren't believed and supported as it pertains to sexual assault in this country, in society. And to that, I have nothing to add. Yes, that is, of course, a thing and an issue and a horrible problem. The film itself, I kept expecting there to be more consequences for some of the men that didn't come. I thought this was like the setup for an exploitation movie that never, exploitation meaning like it's a revenge thriller, like she's getting payback for all the people who wronged her friend, but they don't really get payback ever.
Yeah, it seems to me like all the worst things in the movie seem to happen to women. And ultimately, I feel like the movie ends up coming down on like, the final lesson of the movie in some ways, I think, is revenge is bad. Like this is actually a argument against revenge rather than an argument against, I mean, it obviously is taking on this system and rape culture and this idea that there aren't consequences, like men can sort of do these horrible things and ruin lives and move on. It's encountering with that idea, but then it ultimately seems to kind of push that to the side and be like, but revenge will eat you up from inside and it's toxic and it will ruin you and you can't lose yourself to it. And it's like,
there's like a double
I didn't see that
reveal.
Coming.
Yeah. There's a double twist at the end, which I won't spoil, but it's like, I think it almost would have been more powerful if it ended in the sense that like, oh, this is a broken system and one woman can't change it. And the male aggressive rape culture wins in the end. But then there's a double reversal on that. That's like, aha, actually. And,
right. And it's also relying on police to save the day, which is like, isn't that the point that they don't say? I don't know.
All these guys are rich and connected and they're going to I left with the sense that, well, it'll be a nuisance, but these guys are still going to get away with it.
Yeah. There was one other thing that was frustrating to me, and it might be a first time direct. And look, for a first time director, it's a good movie. I'm not saying this is like a piece of crap. Like I would definitely want to see what Emerald Fennell is going to do next. And I think this is like an interesting, provocative conversation starting debut that's worth seeing. But another thing that felt a little first movie to it about me was it's kind of in this weird middle place between our realistic world and then kind of a heightened, larger than life fantasy world. And like sometimes you feel like you're in one and then you shift to the other. And I think a more consistent vision of that would have helped a lot. Like if we're in a larger than life world, you can go a little bigger with some of your creative choices and get away with it. If we're in a more realistic world, you got to keep things a little more grounded. I don't know if all the sequences totally work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even the design, sometimes it feels like we're in like Tim Burton candy colored land. And other times we're just in a bar.
Yeah. I did think it was very inspired casting choices to take these icons of adorkable, non-threatening malehood and to kind of flip them on your head.
Also,
it kind of tips the hand for who's going to be evil. It's like, oh, I used to like that guy. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Also, I will say Carey Mulligan and Bo Burnham, like the movie only kind of works because you kind of they do a very good job of right away making them charming as a couple, and you kind of want to get them together. Like they're doing a good enough job. Like this could almost spin off into a rom-com in some segments. Like they're very good at that, like meet cute, oh, these two people like each other. I feel like if they didn't nail that through line, nothing else would kind of work.
Yeah. But that to me like kind of dominated the whole second half of the movie as it turns into like like you said, it's like it's an anti-revenge movie, and that just kind of I couldn't quite wrap my head around
I
that
don't,
aspect.
Yeah,
of it.
I just don't know if you could fully serve the revenge is bad story while keeping the important focus on the men are bad story. And it's like, no, let's do this movie about men are bad, and then we can do revenge is bad later.
Right. Oh, thank God, Danielle.
I did it. Hi.
Oh, you're right. You're just in time.
Did I thread the needle?
Move on.
Well,
and the next. No, I'm just kidding.
Two men were just about to finish talking about the things they didn't like about Promising Young Woman, so please set us straight.
I didn't think it was fair to me. That's what I'm gonna say.
Well, Promising Young Woman was a movie that has been hyped, at least for me, for a while. Like, you would see the commercials and all the women was like, ooh, what's going on here with this thing? And so I feel like some of it suffered because so many of us were waiting on it and waiting to see what it was going to be about, that it's hard to kind of live up to that hype. But for me, I guess I am a hypocrite because I wanted to see more violence.
We all agree.
That was my thing. Was I was like, like you every time you talk to them, you just like give them a stern talking to, like you just like tell them like, oh, like this is bad and don't do this. So yeah, I wanted more violence. That sounds terrible. But overall I enjoyed it. I really liked it. But yeah, no, I wanted like just straight up revenge tale, start stabbing dudes.
Hey, glad we're all on the same page. Well, that's what we had just finished saying, is that it's a revenge movie that's against getting revenge on people.
And I would say like all the consequences, the real consequences until the very end are all visited on women. It's like the men get away with it.
Yeah.
One guy says he's really sorry. So
and yeah, I feel like at the end that's like one of the easier self-defense cases. I mean, I guess spoilers. It's like if you're cuffed to a bed and everybody else is passed out, and it's like this person it was either you or them, right? With their high-priced lawyers, I feel like they're gonna get away with it. So I don't know if the movie meant for us to think that or not, but I think it was trying to give us a satisfying, well, the police fixed everything. Great.
Yeah, and that's the other thing for me is like you can't really end your revenge movie about how you had to take justice into your own hands with like, thank God the cops are gonna save the day. Like, no, this movie exists because the cops did
they didn't
the day before, remember?
Yeah. Anywho, I guess that's it. That's it. Apologies in advance for that. But let's keep going. What else we got?
From the studio who brings you horror films that turn out to be elaborate metaphors about the notion of family or whatever, comes a movie about being an Asian family in America, which was already pretty scary without putting a Babadook or whatever in it. Return to the 80s, where despite what Stranger Things and Wonder Woman say, was not covered in neon everywhere. And meet the Yee family, a hardy band from California determined to get out of the chicken sexing business. In this stirring tale about how farming is really effing hard and marriage is even harder, but at least Mountain Dew is delicious.
My favorite. 한에서 온 미술물이에요. 아빠가 몸에 좋다고 그랬어요.
Whose deliberate pace will give your brain enough time to connect everything back to The Simpsons. Check it out. Angry dad who loves food, sad mom who's worried all the time, devout Christian neighbor, grandparent who's starting to lose it, a rebellious boy and his smart and respectful sister. And they all cram into a beat-up station wagon. Hey, maybe they should have tried growing tobacco instead of Korean vegetable. Okay, I'll stop. Veggie Tales.
Pause. This was a lovely film. I certainly enjoyed. I don't mean lovely like, oh, it was lovely to watch their marriage dissolve and their farm burn down. but I did enjoy. I enjoyed the ride and great performances. It's such like to me, it's going to be tough to make the case. I know Steven Yeun's got like a lot of buzz right now, but to me, it's such like an ensemble movie. Like it's the family dynamics. It's the way like they're each kind of playing off each other. Like if there was a best cast award, I would give it to them. Because I liked like aspects of just the way they played off each other so much. But yeah, I also won't slam my foot on the table and do more first cow ranting, but I think if you're gonna watch if you only can watch one Asian immigrant rural trying to eke out a living in the past in America movie, I prefer First Cow, but that's neither here nor there because Minari's really good too. What do you guys think of this?
Yeah, it's really good. I loved watching the relationships between the family. Sorry, I'm still like shaken from dealing with that Comcast nonsense. But yeah, I really like the family. I love the grandma. Just a great movie. I really, really had fun watching it.
This is definitely one of my favorites of the year for me. I love when you get that, you get sucked into the rhythms of this other, way of living and this life. I'm never going to be a part of an immigrant family in the Midwest in the 80s trying to start a Korean vegetable farm. But I feel like, even if it's simulated,
I feel like I could now.
I feel like I get what that perspective was about. And it's created this sense that, I have this insight into this life and this way of living and this experience that I would never otherwise have. And by the end, when, slightly more dramatic things start to happen to the family, that's when you notice all the groundwork that it's laid for an hour and a half of getting you to know who they are and the rhythms of their life, that they don't have to do big things. It's little changes that alert you to. There's a scene where the wife goes to help her husband clear vegetables out of this barn, and that simple act of let me help you move a few boxes of these vegetables communicates so much, because we built up all of this experience with these characters. And that's a thing I think only the very best, the most sort of intimate and thoughtful and attentive and observant movies really pull off.
Yeah, it did show restraint, and I think it came off more positively than what we were talking about with Nomadland. But it's like, maybe just because of the world we live in today, I kept waiting for like, okay, here comes the angry racist lynch mob to take him to get this family out of there. Like you keep expecting that to happen, but the problems were so internal, and it's like, farming is hard enough as it is. You didn't need to have somebody with pitchforks come chase them out of town. So
yeah, sometimes you want theater, sometimes you want to play, something a little quieter.
And it sounds like, watching a movie about water rights and about, making these kinds of deals and about whether to move from the city where you do chicken sexing to this farm where you're going to try this new business. Like, those don't sound like exciting things like when you're describing a Fast and Furious movie, but it's really all in how you tell the story and how you get us in it. There are moments that are funny in this, and there are moments that are dramatic and emotional
and suspenseful. Yeah.
It's just, it's you have to kind of, just like I was saying for Nomadland, you kind of have to meet the movie halfway and give it time to like worm its way into your brain.
Yeah, but you're right. It is like it's not without tension and conflict and stuff like that, but there are just the simple fact of being an immigrant family in like rural Arkansas. I think like you're expecting things to happen that don't, and then they kind of have like Chekhov's heart condition with one of the characters that I feel like doesn't fully go off, although it's like it's kind of used as a metaphor, like a thematic device.
Yeah, I mean, right, that's everything comes through, but not necessarily in the most obvious way that is like earmarked for you earlier. I'm like, look, some movies are supposed to be like that, and it's fine. Like there's room for all kinds of storytelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't progress in the way that you sort of expect that it's going.
Yeah. Which is I will just one last time say First Cow. First Cow's really good.
I also love First Cow. It's true. Kelly Richard has a lot of great movies, and go back and watch them.
I haven't seen that yet. It is on my list, and now I feel like it's been put on there 5 more times. Good.
Good movie.
All right, let's keep going.
Anthony Hopkins gives the performance of a lifetime as an old man refusing help for the dementia that's slowly eating away at his mind. That's such a heartbreaking, torturous, and cruel portrayal of a legend's final days. There's no way you actually watched it. Nuh-uh, no. This year's been hard enough. I'm just gonna watch this TikTok to relax instead. Never mind. The Downer.
So yes, Anthony Hopkins is the least likely TikTok star I think you could have predicted, but man, he gives you some heat. I think also we've done this every year in the Oscars trailers, we always select one movie that we're like, you haven't seen this. No, it's not so bleak. It's like, you know what? Like, I think it was Lion. One year where it's like, what movie was that? If you say you've seen this, you're probably lying. Was the because I think that's the honest truth about so much of the Best Picture stuff is like people haven't seen all the movies, including the people who vote on them.
Well, this year, that is usually true. That there's so many nominees now that one or two inevitably get by you. But this year, especially because we weren't all going to theaters. Everybody was kind of watching different stuff. A lot of people are still getting caught up on, Bridgerton or whatever and haven't had a chance. So yeah, I think this year in particular, there's movies that are like, we've gotten way late in the season and we're still like, the Mauritanian, that's not a real movie. Like they're kind of still coming from outside and it's like hard to get your bearings.
Yeah.
This Mauritanian's real. That's what Jodie Foster won for supporting actors for.
Well, this movie was adapted from a play, I believe, and it feels like that, but in a way that I think adds to the film, like the claustrophobicness and like the fact that you're just kind of in it with this one guy for 99% of the time, like you're right there with him with what he's going through, and it's not an experience I'd want to go through again, but I thought was really moving and messed with my head in a way that Tenet could only hope.
Yeah, I mean it's always nice when these great actors. There's so few great roles for older people. I mean, we like you sort of get your peak roles in your like 20s if you're a woman, and then your 20s through your like 40s if you're a man, and then like that's it. We don't know what else to do for you. So it's always nice when these great legendary actors get to come back, and we at least have like the one final like the dying mentor or the senile person role, so they can sort of like go out, like the Paul Newman nobody's fool move, where you get to like go out on a high note, and that kind of feels like maybe this moment for Hopkins.
Yeah, but yeah, just another movie where it's like, oh, losing touch with reality, just like, oh, losing your hearing, or so many other films that this year just gave you a real empathetic gut punch, and you leave it thinking, wow, I really hope I and the people I love never have to go through that. But bravo, Sir Anthony. I don't think he'll win this year, bizarrely. I don't know why I feel that way. I think didn't this come out like even later or more inaccessible than the other ones?
Yeah, this was the last one to come out. I believe it's still only like VOD. Like I think it's still like a $20 rental.
Yeah, I had to do the $20 Prime rental to see it.
Wow, look at you. Yeah. So I think if I were a betting man, I would say Chadwick Boseman probably would have my bet on who's going to take it this year. But
Yeah. So yeah, asking someone to pay $20 to experience what it's like to go through dementia is that's a tall order. But if you're up for it, I put it in that it's nothing like Requiem for a Dream, but I'm just thinking of like movies that I really enjoyed but never want to see again.
It's harrowing.
Yeah.
it's harrowing like Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah. So if you're feeling too good about yourself, check out The Downer. All right, let's go to starring.
Starring all the things you actually decided to watch this year. Live action cartoons. Live action cartoons we took way too seriously. All the new Netflix shows. All of the old Netflix shows. All of Netflix until all that's left is cooking and real estate shows.
And he's not even eaten a taco before.
You're a taco virgin.
Yep.
You gotta eat a taco with me. I gotta be your first taco.
Yeah. Okay, fine, those two. Lighting $60 on fire. Yep. Your cat.
Is that your cat, Danielle?
The wall you glare at during your really loud parties when you know they aren't socially distancing because that's a studio apartment. And I would love to have company too, but some of us are being responsible. And I haven't felt the warm touch of another human being in months because of this wasted year that's flashing before my eyes. Brad.
So pause here briefly.
2021.
Those last two are, Danielle, those are true stories?
Yeah, those are true stories. I have been watching my cats because they do not, as I've told people, they don't F's with me at all. They do not like me. I was happy to be able to get that little bit of it. So watching them as they tear apart my house has been a huge part of how I've spent this. And then, neighbors having really loud parties that I could hear. And it's like, oh, I would also love to go to a party. Wouldn't you? It sounds great.
Brad, is that a made up name, or is it?
That's a made up name.
Or are you calling him out? Okay.
I'm not calling out a specific Brad. I don't know their
fair
name.
enough. Well, Brad's in general, you're on notice, or whoever has Brad-like tendencies.
Watch out, Brads.
Yeah,
coming for you.
Well, yes, I'm glad we could break the fourth wall and include your cat. Joe was sad that we didn't include his cat, but you know what? Joe don't write here no more. So
yeah, really, that's the breaks, man.
Yeah, sorry, your cat does not make.
There was a sad email where he accepted that fact in the email thread.
All right, well now let's play my favorite part.
I don't care what the Academy says. This scene from Money Plane was the purest moment of joy I had at the cinema all year.
Whatever you want to wager on, the Money Plane has you covered. You want to bet on a dude, an alligator. Money Plane.
Yeah, that was my most liked.
When they pitched Kelsey on Money Plane, do you think they even sent a script at all, or do you think there was like, we need you for 2 days, you be in and out, one costume change, we'll get you, whatever you want for dinner. I don't even know. I literally feel like he landed, put on the suit, was like, what am I saying? Fucking an alligator, let's do it. There's no way he read that in advance and was still like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this movie.
Not a chance. Maybe they just sent him his scene or two.
I'm saying if he read a side that was like, you want to bet on a dude fucking an alligator, I think he's on the horn. Like, I'm fucking Fraser Crane. Get me at home.
Well, and we are, yeah.
I'm damn Fraser Crane.
And we've got that reboot or whatever that might be coming up. Mm-hmm. So just trying to get some of that good Money Plane money in before he, he's busy.
I can't be talking about doing stuff with alligators.
Well,
who I am?
We've got some exciting things in the works here at Honest Trailers, and that might not be the last we see of Darius Emmanuel, the Grouch.
Wait, what's
his full
Darius
name?
Emmanuel Grouch
the Third, aka
the Rumble.
The Rumble.
Yeah.
May not be the last we see of him here on this show. Is there anything that we cut from this episode? Let's play it now.
There must be.
And the guy from Succession doing an impression of Cheech and Chong at the same time.
It's a Tom Collins. I know it's kind of a country club drink, but they're delicious.
Are there any American actors left to play historical Americans? Or at least not sound like Muppets? The Socialist Network. Trial by Hippie. Mostly Judas, featuring the Black Messiah. Snitches get riches. I got 99 problems, and a snitch is one.
Senior Citizen Kane. First responders. Booze your own adventure.
The Sound and the Fury. An actually quiet place. Cruisin' USA.
I love that game.
Joke her. She's not mad, she's just disappointed. Get her to the geeks. Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. Farmers Only. Ozark Reactor. Yun Acres. Chicky Farm. Sneed's Feed and Seed. We are farmers. Ba-da-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Mind of Dementia.
It's Mind of Dementia. Oh, we got Ryan. There we go. Good times. By the way, if you haven't subscribed at this point, please like and subscribe. Should always mention that, just in case this is your first time watching and you've decided to sit here for almost an hour. Now's the time to subscribe. Let's go to some questions and comments from viewers like yourselves. Larissa M. Ihar writes, I think the whole point of Promising Young Woman is that women never get justice or revenge even. So yeah, while the end was minimally satisfying, it kind of beats the point, or maybe kind of is the point. Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair reading of the film.
Yeah.
So let's see. Evan J. Pretzer writes, what's your Money Plane bet?
Oh, like what would I want to bet on if I
You can bet on anything.
Plane?
Yeah.
I will say one disappointing thing about the film Money Plane is that there is not a focus on outrageous bets like you think there is going to be. They're betting on like poker and stuff. Like it's the lead-in is very exciting and dramatic.
Yeah.
You can't promise me gators and then give me card games. I was not excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm not hearing any money plane bets out of you guys.
Okay.
There's a guy on Twitter, Iffy Nwadwe, who frequently discusses whether or not he could defeat various wild animals.
I'm sorry.
And I would want a money plane bet on that. Like, could he really take out the gorilla that he thinks he could?
Yeah.
Strength to strength, I believe, is the official. You got to be able to take it out strength to strength.
I would be very curious to see him apply some of this knowledge and strategy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I guess I have just a limited creative betting imagination because it's like
I mean, we could test the horse-sized duck thing people used to ask us in questions all the time.
Yeah.
Finally apply that.
But how would we get a horse-sized duck?
Yeah, I don't know.
Money plane.
Elon Musk.
Money plane's got
money
it.
plane. Crypto. Money plane.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not here to talk about money plane.
You need to get on the money plane to steal crypto? You don't. You could just steal crypto from anywhere. You don't need to be on the plane. That's the whole point.
I guess most of the comments are about Promising Young Women. So
can you answer? So that was all John, right? Because I think people think Minari is a different voice, but that's all John doing every single one.
Yes, John.
Yeah, he just changes up his tone.
Right.
Yeah.
There are, he can do a million voices, and that is his Minari voice is, if you actually watch like prestige drama trailers from the 90s, like it's a little more nasally.
Yeah. He's doing like Fox Searchlight voice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a real thing.
Also, Evan J. Pretzer, bringing the heat. Submitting my query now. Will the Academy be frank and give the Best Picture rank to Mank for being about a film industry crank? Good times. Yeah. Jason Georges writes, how do you decide the order of the movies in the trailer? They are in the order in which they were submitted, and then you watch the first cut and then say, maybe that one should go there. Just to kind of keep the voices separate and the tone kind of mixing it up a little bit. That's all. There's no science to it. Pat Magana writes, it's really strange this year they went with 8 Best Picture noms when the last year had 9. I'm guessing they really hated The Five Bloods. Do you think they hated it or forgot about it? Because I think it didn't. If it came out this last couple months, I think it would have been a shoo-in.
I don't know the answer to this, but I'm curious. What if Netflix had just switched Chicago 7 and Five Bloods? Like, they're both done. Like, what if they just released them in opposite order? Like, I almost feel like the exact opposite would have happened, and like we might have a bunch of nominations for Five Bloods, and Chicago 7 would be that one from early in the year. Like, you remember that Eddie Redmayne, Aaron Sorkin thing? I'm surprised that didn't get any nominations.
Yeah, it feels like this. I mean, that's one thing that always happens no matter the year, is that the further back you are, the more that people forget about you. And I think especially like with everything that was going on when The Five Bloods came out, it's not easy to forget. It's a great movie, but I do think that for the people who are doing the voting, we're healing. Is that what they say? Hollywood is healing. We're forgetting about movies that didn't come out 5 months ago.
There you go. Well, okay. And then I hate to really give this person all of the questions, but Evan J. Pretzer, you're just bringing the heat today. Is Sorkin the creator most likely to smell their own farts?
I'm such a sucker. I still love Sorkin. Like, I still like a lot of it. I think it's just been like hammered into my brain from all of my years of watching West Wing, but I still really enjoy it. That being said, I think his head is so far up there that the farts never get a chance to release.
I mean, who among us has the privilege of not smelling their own farts? I guess he means intentionally, like a fine wine.
I feel like Christopher Nolan also smells his own farts, but before he admits them, he's like, "Ooh, that one's going to be a ribald entry," and then it farts.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tarantino, but he like thinks it's funny. It's like, check this one out.
I read that this one, man, is based on like John Cassavetes farted like this, all right, on the set of Machine Gun McCain.
He references old farts that he's had.
Classic farts that he's riffing.
Lars von Trier maybe, but he probably does it to like other people.
Like, I think Lars von Trier's making his actors smell his farts. Yes, Matt Dillon, that one is for you.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of hard-hitting movie journalism you can expect here on Honest Trailers and Honest Trailers commentaries. Hope you've had fun. We've done a solid hour. Danielle, thank you for fighting through, going through the fire of Spectrum/Comcast to make it back with us today. Really appreciate
it. It's because there's no Universal movies that we were talking about. They're just angry.
Pull the plug.
Taking it out.
F9 should have gotten delayed.
Yeah. And thank you, Lon.
Sorry we didn't love Trolls World Tour.
And thank you, audience, for sticking with us. This was always a fun one, and we will do it again next year, should there be a next year. And next week, we're doing another multiple film honest trailer that happens to coincide with a oncoming holiday. So we hope you enjoy that one, too. We'll be back next week for more Honest Trailers commentaries. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.